Good morning. So the government has committed to reviewing its viability planning practice guidance. And I think it was last looked at in 2014. And look, I would say it's not before time. I have lost count of the number of conversations I've had with local councillors in Welwyn Hatfield and across the country of all political persuasions who are exasperated by the system as it currently exists. And I was looking at the NHF's written evidence, and I thought this was compelling. And it says, however, the use of viability to negotiate down affordable housing contributions is against the spirit of the rules and is frequently used purely to compensate for overpaying for land or to maximise profit. I'm keen to ask the panel if you all share that assessment and, most importantly, where the government should start in terms of reforming this process. And Robbie, sorry to put you on the spot, I was going to ask you to come
That's
first.
fine, yeah. So we certainly welcome the update of the viability guidance. We hope work from this committee and also the work from the Public Accounts Committee feeds into that. Clearly, the planning system is changing, as referred to earlier, so it's necessary that any of that update dovetails with other changes that are happening elsewhere. So can I just take an example of the emerging new MPPF and the new local plan preparation process? So the means by which the examination is undertaken, the proposed gateway assessments, it'll be key in terms of managing this process. So that guidance will have to be timed well with other reforms as well. So yeah, certainly something we support.
Happy to go next.
Sorry, Mike. Overpayment's an interesting statement. If you talk to a lot of people who have sold land or optioned land or allowed developers to option land, they get very heavily screwed down on price as well. So I'm not sure that overpayment is necessarily the issue that the development industry may say it is. The developers tend to be quite well structured in terms of the different levels they've got of a building company, a sales company, a land ownership company, and that complexity can be quite hard to unravel. The pressure on viability is significant, and there seem to be an awful lot of reasons that come forward to suddenly challenge viability, and they seem to come forward too consistently late in the day, which is extremely challenging. I've got examples where applications have initially gone in, as I said, for significant affordable housing, and then the viability has been argued that actually no, there's no viability for affordable housing at all, even with grant from Homes England. So I think we need to have a far greater ability to say that there is a minimum acceptable requirement. If you are building here, you have got to provide certain infrastructure, certain housing, affordable housing. Maybe not the 40% levels. I mean, we try for a 40% level. We achieve, if we're lucky, half that. But a greater clarity and therefore a greater ability to remove that wriggle room, I think, would massively help. And it would massively help speeding up development. Because arguments over viability is a great reason not to sign a 106. That means the price of the houses that you're going to build is increasing consistently, the value of the land is increasing, you're doing no work, and yet you're theoretically making money by delaying. And that can't be allowed either. And that's part of that viability game.
Melanie, can I ask specifically whether you'd support a minimum acceptable requirement, as Richard has just set out, for affordable and social housing?
So my starting point is that across a lot of the country at the moment, development is not viable, full stop. So I think we have to accept that there is a need to be flexible. I think having sort of targets to aim for in terms of minimum requirements could work, but the truth of the matter is that if you want stuff to be built, you have to create the conditions in which it's viable for developers to build it, whether that's homes, whether that's new communities, whether that's logistics facilities, etc. So I think you need to have the flexibility to have a conversation about the basis on which it is possible to build at all, because building nothing serves no purpose. I guess in terms of the review, we welcome the review actually, because I think it's clear from the conversation this morning already, and no doubt other sessions that the committee's had, that there's not confidence in the system at the moment, and for responsible developers that's not good, because if they don't feel there's confidence in the system, then that erodes some public trust in what we're trying to do. So I think the review is timely, and it may sound a trivial point, but one of the things I'd urge the department to do in conducting the review is not just to do it on paper. is to actually get people in a room across, different perspectives, all sides of the debate, and just kind of talk about these things, because it's amazing how much more energy and creativity you can get if you sit and talk about things rather than just send bits of paper backwards and forwards. I guess we think there is scope to clarify exactly what the process is. I mean, we need sort of clarity around what the system should be. We need to see how it links with the non-statutory guidance that people like the RICS, as the professional body, produce, so that, we help inspectors or judges, if it comes to review, to understand what they're looking at, to understand, to eliminate judgments where there are different judgments being made inconsistently across the country. We hope that the department will look at, some of the latest legal decisions, the appeal decisions in London at Stag Brewery or Cuba Street, for example, which have something to say around, which I think maybe partly to your point, which, how growth modelling should be factored into looking at viability, and the extent to which, it's reasonable or not, and the judgment suggested isn't reasonable to try and capture upfront assumptions about growth, although it is reasonable if that growth transpires or becomes apparent to capture it at that stage. I think that's quite an important clarification that might help in all of this. And then I think, to your point maybe about standardisation, rather than think about standard requirement, think about a standard way for assessing deliverability. So in planning policy guidance, you could put more into that would help local authorities and help developers to understand how deliverability is going to be assessed, how things changing that change in impact on viability can be assessed along the way. Because this is a journey. This isn't a point in time at which you say, okay, here are the numbers. These numbers are going to stay the numbers, and therefore we're going to hold you to everything that's within them. This has to be a journey because costs do change. Costs have been going up massively, build costs, construction costs. We've got a huge shortage of skilled labour, and therefore that means that those costs are also escalating. We have to have a system that's flexible enough to take all parties on a journey and be able to be flexible to the way things that do change along the way.
Will, before you come in, look, I completely understand, Melanie, there is nuance to this. I have to say I am cynical about some elements of it, not least I represent Welwyn Hatfield, Welwyn Garden City, a development much discussed, adjacent to the station. It's 25 minutes to Finsbury Park on the train, and I've been told it's not viable to build social and affordable housing, and I have to say I find that difficult to buy. But trying to move this on in a constructive way, well, obviously I cited your evidence as the NHF. I am interested in your view on whether there is scope for a national advisory service. How do we build the framework to improve this? Because my view is the system is broken at the moment, and I'm really interested in practical steps to improve it.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely think capacity and skills within local planning authorities and driven by resourcing ultimately is certainly an issue, because practice varies very widely across the country, and some local authorities are kind of much more able to hold those robust viability negotiations than others. So I think that some kind of service which supports that happening across the country, I think, could be really helpful. I think other things to note. I think they agree that construction costs are putting pressure on viability. So until we start to see that come down, there will be pressure. But that's certainly only a part of the picture. I think the process is stronger than it used to be. So the 2018 changes have helped a bit, but particularly the kind of it being very clear that you can't use the price you paid for the land to renegotiate viability. I mean, arguably that's why we've got quite a lot of unsold Section 106, because renegotiating viability on the basis of the price you paid for land is no longer a way out of that, so you still got to provide the Section 106 somehow. That could be at least part of the reason. But as I said, and I think Robbie said, the plan-making stage I think is really important for this, and there's an opportunity with a renewed focus on that, quicker timescales, etc., to really to put viability and affordable housing at the heart of that. Really good data, really good analysis, much more granular analysis, so that you can set as much of it really clearly up front, and then you massively reduce the scope for then site-by-site negotiation down the line. I think there's a good opportunity in the next few years to improve things.
Okay, sorry, can I do one? I just want to check, because in your own submission you said it's frequently used to compensate for overpaying for land or to maximise profit. Is that your view? Is that still the view of the NHF? Because that frequently used is important.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly haven't quantified it, but I think there is frequent examples for our members of of that being their experience of developments. There's also frequent examples where it's works much better. I wouldn't say it's the standard practice, but it's certainly there, and it probably varies a lot by area.
Thank you.